أهلا وسهلا بكم في يوم أوروبا. ديسا مايا. Welcome شهيرة.
Thank you Mr. Ambassador. أهلا سيادة السفير، أنا سعيدة جدا لوجودي معكم اليوم ومع وفد الاتحاد الأوروبي في مصر ودول الأعضاء والأصدقاء اللي بيتابعونا عبر الإنترنت للاحتفال بيوم أوروبا، مناسبة سعيدة جدا بنستناها كل سنة.
This is a special day for us Europeans and for Egyptians too, as we enjoy a long and standing history of cooperation. To mark this, we have prepared a very special program, and to start,
مصر والاتحاد الأوروبي يتمتعان بتاريخ طويل وثري وعلاقات متميزة واستراتيجية، وده اللي هنحاول نلقي عليه الضوء من خلال اللقاء مع سعادة السفير. بس في البداية خلونا نسمع السلام الوطني لجمهورية مصر العربية والسلام الوطني لأوروبا.
This is a favorite music piece of mine by Ludwig van Beethoven, not only because he composed it in my hometown, but also because it is a very effective musical antidepressant and indeed symbolizes a core value of the European Union. Ode to Joy represents the triumph of universal goodwill against war and desperation. And it became the European anthem in 1985.
Indeed, it's a fascinating part of Symphony No. 9. We can see a metaphor for the European Union in this. After the horrors Europeans suffered in successive wars, including World War II, finally, the nations of the continent stopped fighting each other, opening the way for dialogue and reconciliation, which is always a crucial first step on the path to development and prosperity.
Yes, and it is key to remember this moment, which was based on shared values. Sadly, today war has returned to Europe as we are facing an unprecedented act of aggression by Russia against a sovereign, independent country, our neighbor, Ukraine.
That's tragic, Mr. Ambassador. Now, the President of the European Commission, Mrs. Ursula von der Leyen, has a special message to share with us on the occasion of Europe Day 2022.
My fellow Europeans, today our continent encounters shadows of the past we thought we had long left behind. An atrocious war, senseless aggression and destroyed cities, millions of innocent fleeing their homes, a people desperately struggling to determine its own future. Europe stands at the side of Ukraine. At the same time, the Kremlin's invasion reminds us why we are celebrating Europe Day. The day when our peaceful, prosperous and united Europe was born. 72 years later, Europe is stronger and more united than ever. We stand united in supporting our Ukrainian friends. We are recovering from the COVID crisis. Member states have already received 100 billion euros from our recovery fund, Next Generation EU. Vast investments are securing millions of jobs and creating new chances in Europe every day. We are working hard to protect the climate and make our continent independent of imported fossil energies. Our union is creating rules that will shape the digital age beyond our borders. Europe could achieve all these things because we were united and determined. And that's why I am convinced and optimistic that our union can also master the challenge posed by the war in Ukraine. The citizens of Europe are showing the way. Millions of Europeans at all corners of our union and from all walks of life have mobilized to help their neighbors in need. Millions have opened their door to Ukrainian refugees. Millions have sent more food and clothes or made a donation. More than ever before, Europeans feel that they belong to one European family. And that fills my heart with pride. So happy birthday, Europe, and happy Europe Day to all of you.
دلوقتي تعالوا نركز على العلاقات بين مصر والاتحاد الأوروبي. عايزة أعرف إمتى بدأت ومدى قوتها. أنا كمواطنة مصرية يهمني جدا أعرف الاستفادة بالنسبة لبلدي من الشراكة.
This year is a remarkable one for EU-Egypt relations because it is a real milestone. Before I explain this, let us review together the history of these relations.
When did EU-Egypt relations start, Mr. Ambassador? إمتى؟
In 1972 with the global Mediterranean policy, but the actual bilateral relations started in 1977.
استنوا لما أحسب كام سنة؟ 45 ولا 50؟
Let me put it this way. This year we are celebrating 50 years of regional cooperation and 45 years of EU-Egypt bilateral relations. But let's see here at the screen the history of these relations. Under the global Mediterranean policy launched in 1972, an agreement between the European Economic Community, as it was called then, and Egypt was signed in January 1977. The framework laid out by the 1995 Euro-Mediterranean Partnership paved the way for some modest advances in the European Union-Egypt relations, leading to a new association agreement signed on 25th June 2001 in the context of the Barcelona process that entered into force in June 2004. In March 2007, the European Neighbourhood Policy Action Plan was adopted. And in 2016, the European Union and Egypt initiated a dialogue on future partnership priorities in line with the revised European Neighbourhood Policy.
But where does this leave us now? The partnership priorities ended in 2021?
No, they're still in effect, so don't worry. And the EU-Egypt Partnership Priorities 22 to 27 is ready and will be adopted soon by the European Union and Egypt. That is why I mentioned earlier that this is a milestone year for EU-Egypt relations as we enter a new phase of priorities to address new common challenges, promoting joint interests and guaranteeing long-term stability and sustainable development on both sides of the Mediterranean.
Egypt has been hard hit, like most other states, by the coronavirus pandemic. How is the EU supporting Egypt in the recovery process post-pandemic?
Particular attention is given to alleviating the adverse socioeconomic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and to reinforce cooperation in support of Egypt's Sustainable Development Strategy, Egypt Vision 2030, including a green, digital, resilient and just recovery and a shared commitment to the universal values of democracy, rule of law and respect for human rights.
What exactly does the new partnership priorities cover?
The new European Union-Egypt Partnership Priorities cover three main areas of cooperation: sustainable modern economy and social development, foreign policy, enhancing stability.
Mr. Ambassador, I know that the EU and Egypt enjoy a large portfolio of cooperation. Tell us more.
The European Union and Egypt are close neighbors and strategic partners with a long history of friendship. This is reflected in the cooperation of the European Union itself, its member states and the European financial institutions with Egypt over the last 10 years, I would say, with a total of 11 billion euros in grants, loans and investment across all sectors, with currently an active portfolio of more than 1 billion euros. Examples are numerous, which are best captured in this coming video.
تعالوا نتعرف أكثر عن مجالات التعاون بين مصر والاتحاد الأوروبي. Addressing common challenges and pursuing common interests on both sides of the Mediterranean is at the heart of the partnership between the European Union and Egypt, with focus on inclusive growth, job creation and social cohesion as a means to bring stability and prosperity to the region. With an ongoing portfolio of 1.3 billion euros, the EU supports Egypt's strategic vision, Agenda 2030, which aims to alleviate poverty and realize a sustainable, green and inclusive transition. Women, youth and society's most vulnerable are at the heart of the EU-funded interventions. Since 2008, the EU has been supporting Egypt in developing key infrastructure projects and has mobilized over 650 million euros in grants, funding which was blended to leverage over 7 billion euros in concessional loans provided by European financial institutions and member states' development banks. To support Egypt's green transition, the EU has co-funded key infrastructure projects in the energy sector, such as development of wind and solar farms. The EU has also contributed to major institutional and regulatory reforms, such as the reform of energy subsidies and the passing of market reform-directed legislation, helping develop this vital sector. The EU has also substantially contributed to the sustainable modernization of the water sector in more than 16 governorates, improving the quality of life for around 16.5 million inhabitants by the year 2023 and providing numerous job opportunities, mostly in rural areas, thus contributing to the government flagship initiative Hayya Karima. With a Team Europe approach, the EU has funded pollution abatement programs and supported wastewater and solid waste management combined with conducive policy dialogue and climate diplomacy. The EU is looking forward to contributing to a successful COP27, which Egypt has generously accepted to host next November in Sharm el-Sheikh. To enhance socio-economic resilience and alleviate poverty while helping in responding to the impact of the COVID-19 outbreak, the EU has promoted participatory local development, addressed climate adaptation and provided socio-economic opportunities that have improved the living conditions of thousands of Egyptians, notably those living in underprivileged areas. and the EU is cooperating with Egypt across many other sectors in innovation, education, and in technical and vocational training to promote entrepreneurship, create inclusive and decent jobs, and foster an economy where women and youth are empowered to realize their full potential. Helping in adopting international best practices, TVET Egypt is working with government entities and public and private sector partners to update school curricula, enhance school infrastructures, and guide students and graduates in their transition to employment. TVET Egypt is also helping revive tourism, hard hit by the COVID-19 pandemic, by helping provide the skilled human capital the industry badly needs to get back on its feet. To boost employment and economic opportunities in underprivileged rural communities, the EU is encouraging farmers to replace wasteful irrigation techniques with sustainable water management methods that enhance productivity and boost food safety. Tens of thousands of farmers have benefited from the adoption of modern irrigation techniques and from the rehabilitation of irrigation canals that has enabled them to access clean and easy-flowing irrigation water. Urban and rural communities are being strengthened and children and youth resilience improved through support for education and social protection. To support the National Education Reform Plan and to fight against child labour, more than 1,000 community schools have been rehabilitated, enabling approximately 40,000 girls and boys to access better learning environments. And children living with disabilities are being empowered through awareness campaigns like Differently Abled. A collaborative effort by the EU and UNICEF, the campaign amplifies inclusion messages and has been effective in changing children's attitudes. And the inclusion campaigns are not just targeting children. Through the EU Trust Fund for Africa, the EU and Egypt are jointly addressing root causes of irregular migration and supporting the country's efforts in hosting migrants and refugees. Women and girls disproportionately affected by the pandemic have not been forgotten. The EU global response is strengthening their protection and empowering them to better cope with the hardships resulting from COVID-19. The EU's efforts in supporting women extends far beyond the pandemic to include women's socio-economic rights, their participation in public life, and ending gender-based violence. To further address the devastating impact of the pandemic, Team Europe, an EU initiative launched to offer support to partners hard hit by the pandemic, mobilized €1.8 billion in grants, loans and guarantees to help mitigate the impact of the coronavirus. To ensure no one is left behind, the EU has contributed to the implementation of the National COVID-19 Response Plan at the level of primary health centres. The EU has also provided protective equipment which was distributed among solid waste workers and frontline workers in family planning clinics all over the country. As part of the COVID-19 response to Egypt, Team Europe has increased access to finance, in particular through European financial institutions such as EIB and EBRD, making it easier for MSMEs to repay their loans and strengthen their resilience during the pandemic. Several shipments via the COVAX facility have arrived in Egypt, helping increase the accessibility of the Egyptian people to COVID vaccines. EU member states have donated around 29 million doses through COVAX and on bilateral basis, and more is yet to come. As part of the response to mitigate the impact of Russia's war against Ukraine on partner countries, the European Commission has launched an initiative for a regional food and resilience facility to address short and medium-term needs of southern neighbourhood partners. Worth €225 million, the initiative aims to address the impact of rising prices of food and commodities in the region. The interventions will mainly target the most vulnerable and ensure their access to basic goods and services, such as by responding to commodity shortage emergencies and sustaining social protection and social safety nets. The EU has allocated a budget of €100 million to Egypt from this facility, which reflects the strength and depth of the EU-Egypt partnership. By continuing to work with Egypt, the EU and its European partners are committed to helping build a more resilient, more inclusive Egypt for the benefit of both Egypt and the EU. Your Excellency, nearly 60% of Egypt's population belongs to the younger generation under the age of 30. And the EU always advocates the importance of young people's well-being, development, engagement, and participation in society and in public life.
Indeed, the European Union has decided to dedicate the year 2022 to the youth. Here in Egypt, the European Union has been investing a lot in promoting youth. We have several bilateral and regional projects that promote youth, like the technical vocational education training and Erasmus Plus, in addition to several grants offered to youth through our culture cooperation.
تعالوا نشوف مع بعض الشباب استفاد ازاي من المشاريع والمبادرات الممولة من الاتحاد الأوروبي في الفيديو التالي. Young people are powerful agents for socio-economic development and change. Egypt, where more than half the population are youth under the age of 30, is capitalizing on its youth bulge, developing policies and programs that empower and engage young people with support from the European Union. With unemployment still a major challenge facing Egypt's youth, the EU-Egypt Technical and Vocational Education and Training Reform Program, co-funded by the EU, is developing Egypt's most valuable resource, human capital. Operating across 27 governorates, the program is enhancing the quality of technical education and training to bridge the gap between labor market needs and the skills of technical students and graduates.
الاتحاد الأوروبي جايب لنا كل حاجة بس بنموذج مصغر زي الألواح الشمسية زي السخانات عشان لما نطلع نسوق العمل أو نشتغل بيها نبقى متدربين عليها. احنا
التجارب دي بندرسها نظري فاحنا هنا بنيجي بننفذها عملي عشان بنشوف بقى نشوف النتائج كده قدام عينينا وبنشتغل بإيدينا.
Besides allowing thousands of young people, many of them young women and girls, to acquire new skills and find decent jobs, TVET Egypt is also working with government entities and with public and private sector partners to develop school curricula and enhance school infrastructures. The EU is also promoting youth entrepreneurship and innovation through advocacy initiatives and public-private dialogue to create an enabling regulatory and policy environment that empowers entrepreneurship. Micro and small enterprises receive financial and technical support to help them develop and grow. In both rural and urban communities, youth resilience is being improved through support for social protection and education. And the EU is providing grants for a wide range of activities in the fields of education, training, youth and sport through its Erasmus Plus program for higher education with focus on social inclusion, the green and digital transition and promoting youth participation in democratic life. With a budget of over €26 billion, Erasmus Plus funds academic mobility and cooperation projects that involve partners from program countries and partner countries across the globe. The program has given Egyptian students the opportunity to study in European universities, and the future holds prospects for enhanced mobility, allowing for more transfer and exchange of knowledge, and for narrowing the bridges between the two shores of the Mediterranean. Circular mobility schemes are part of the EU-sponsored migration dialogue, which builds on brain circulation, avoiding brain drain. Migration and mobility is a key policy area of the new EU agenda for the southern Mediterranean, aiming to improve the quality of life in the region and accelerate the recovery from COVID. To support Egypt's national population strategy, the EU, in coordination with the Ministry of Health, UNFPA and Guzur, conducted a community engagement plan study to identify the barriers limiting youth from accessing reproductive health information and services, and to help address those challenges. Piloted in 3 districts in Sharqiya Governorate, the study engaged community members and community-based organizations in unified action to promote reproductive health-seeking behaviors for youth. The EU is also empowering youth through its participation in a variety of cultural activities, such as the annual Aswan International Film Festival for Women. In this year's edition, held in February, the EU organized a series of cinematic workshops for young aspiring filmmakers in a variety of areas such as script writing, acting, and film direction.
أنا خدت فرصة جديدة إن أنا إزاي أعرف أتعرف على السينما بشكل مختلف وبشكل أعمق، فبالنسبة لي نقطة حلوة إن فعلا الاتحاد الأوروبي بيوفر جزء كبير جدا من إنه فعلا الورش دي تبقى معمولة في أسوان، إن يبقى في أدوات أكتر، وكل مرة كل سنة الأدوات دي بتزيد إن إحنا إزاي نعرف نشتغل بشكل عملي، فبالنسبة لي دي نقطة عظيمة جدا.
احنا بدأنا نكون فكرة عن صناعة السينما وبدأنا نشتغل بالفعل وبدأنا نعمل مشاريع، فده مرحلة التطور دي بدأت تكون جوانا احنا نفسنا، فبنبدأ نشتغل على مشاريعنا الشخصية وبنطور منها. طبعا مشاركة الاتحاد الأوروبي مع المهرجان بالمعدات أو بسواء أي دعم تاني كان له دور كبير وكان شيء كويس.
2022 has been designated as the European Year for Youth. The EU hopes to extend its youth-focused activities and policies to southern Mediterranean partners, including Egypt. The recently launched European Youth Portal provides information on the latest youth-related initiatives and projects, with no fewer than 27 new initiatives on topics ranging from digital transition to education and mobility, health, culture and sport. By accessing the portal, young people can learn more about the different projects and participate in activities across Europe. With the right skills to thrive, Egypt's youth can build a greener, more inclusive and digital future for themselves and for Egypt. This is an impressive portfolio and has great impact on the lives of many Egyptians.
Indeed.
Ambassador Berger, I always read in the news that the EU is Egypt's largest trading partner. Can you tell us more about trade relations between the two?
Let us see this on the screen and explain it to everyone. Total trade in goods between the European Union and Egypt grew from 8.6 billion euros in 2003 to 30.6 billion euros in 2021. During this period, Egypt exports to the European Union grew by 212%. The European Union remains Egypt's main trading partner, accounting for 24.5% of total Egyptian trade in 2020.
Despite COVID, last year, 2021, witnessed a historic record for trade between the EU and Egypt, crossing the threshold of 30 billion euros for the first time and recording 25% growth rate compared to the year before, 2020. A significant jump just in 1 year. In 2021, Egypt's exports to the EU recorded over 9 billion euros, with an impressive annual growth rate of 42%, while EU exports to Egypt grew by 18%. Your Excellency, we can't be having this conversation without talking about the most pressing issue, climate change. And I know for a fact that the EU is the world champion and a pioneer in promoting green policies, practices and efforts.
Climate change and environmental degradation are an existential threat to Europe and the world. To overcome these challenges, the European Green Deal will transform the European Union into a modern, resource-efficient and competitive economy, ensuring no net emissions for greenhouse gas by 2050, economic growth decoupled from resource use, and no person and no place left behind.
موضوع المناخ ده مهم جدا لأنه هيأثر علينا كلنا. That is quite a deal, Mr. Ambassador. How does Egypt fit into all this?
Perfectly well. We have numerous projects in water, agriculture and transportation sectors to ensure implementation of the deal. As I said, no one is left behind.
And it's also very timely, coming just ahead of COP27, which Egypt is hosting in November in Sharm el-Sheikh.
Indeed, and we have already started in the delegation with a number of public diplomacy events promoting in Cairo and also in Alexandria, where we are planning a beach cleanup, kids climate hub, 27 videos with Member States ambassador on climate and much more.
Is there more to learn about EU-Egypt areas of cooperation? We've covered a lot already.
Yes, much more. The European Union and Egypt have a long-standing cooperation in research and innovation. We believe that scientific cooperation is among the most important pillars of our cooperation. We strongly believe in international cooperation innovation to address the societal challenges humanity is facing. Under the previous EU Research and Innovation Funding Programme, Horizon 2020, there have been 56 participations from Egypt. The new Research and Innovation Framework Programme Horizon Europe, running from 21 to 27, continues to support all research and innovation areas. The programme remains open to Egyptian entities to apply, and we hope to see Egyptian entities participating in this new programme.
I think we can talk for hours to cover all areas of cooperation between the EU and Egypt. We've already seen together quite an interesting variety of features marking the past, the present and the future of EU-Egypt relations.
And more to come, inshallah. Did you enjoy it?
Gidden. Happy Europe Day to you, Your Excellency, and to all member states of the European Union from all of us here in Egypt.
Thank you. It was a pleasure having you with us today. Happy Europe Day to all, and thank you for joining us. Mas salama.